Welcome to Dynasty Dumbies, everyone. Your home for the latest in college football news and action. We're your hosts, Hunter and Tony. Tony, we have an incredible week 4 slate of games in front of us. So how would you kick us off with a little bit of a reminder on our rankings and our group rankings going into week 4?
Just to go over once again so you guys can have it drilled in your head, our criteria. Head to head is a key factor. We always, that takes almost superiority in it, where if a team beats another team, it's going to matter the most. Obviously, the results will matter. We do not care about hypotheticals. And the overall team vibe on a lot of these teams and if we like them or not. So, just to get right into it, here's a quick reminder on how our rankings panned out. You can go ahead and lead off with yours.
Yeah, like we discussed in the recap episode, Miami, the new number 1 team after a dominant win over USF. USF falls to 15. I think both of our top fives are just about the same with a little bit of swap of Georgia and Oregon here. I think we both are wanting to see some of these teams like Texas Tech and Vanderbilt take a next step potentially this week. But, overall, I think a team to really be looking for here is Texas A&M. I know I was hating on them early in the season, but huge win off of Notre Dame. So I think that they're going to be looking to make some moves this week. But we're going to see how games work out this week. And as always, week by week results matter. So we're not afraid to mix things up if we have to, like Texas dropping for me from 12 to 22 just because they haven't been playing well. And
Yeah.
even though I had them high, I'm not afraid to drop them because I think other teams are playing better. You don't get brownie points in this league for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like we said, the results matter. It doesn't matter about who would win on what hypothetical field or neutral field. I mean, so it's all about those week in and week out performances. So, and that goes to show on mine. Albeit, I will say again, I did forget BYU, and I promise to fix that. If they do not mess it up royally, they will 100% be ranked. Again, more than likely, because I believe I had them just inside the top 20 or just outside the top 20, so it's not like they were undeserving. But again, I give South Carolina that tiny bit of leeway just purely because of the quarterback injury. It's always really hard when your starter goes down. But nothing too drastically different from each other. But we're just going to go right into the AP and the combined Dynasty Dummy rankings. Obviously, with the AP, still a lot of controversy around them right now with how some of these ballots are looking. But needless to say, it happens. I mean, look at me. It happened to me. It's bound to happen. But some of them are very questionable. They have Texas inside the top 10. They still have Notre Dame ranked despite being winless.
It's crazy.
Very crazy in just about everybody's eyes. I'm sure Notre Dame's just like, hey, we'll take it. They'll take a number next to their name all day, especially in today's
would,
playoff. So. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're going to need it when it comes closer to this playoff time. And I believe it's, 5 weeks when we start getting playoff rankings. So
I think it's a little bit later, and I think it's 7.
Is it 7? I can't remember what week they start doing it, but it's going to be important come that time. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up if they can get this on the road.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to call out Georgia Tech is sitting at 18, while LSU is sitting at number 3 for getting a little bit of credit for beating Clemson that first part of the week, where Georgia Tech, they aren't getting as much credit as LSU. I think that's why you see LSU and Tony and I's personal rankings a little bit down closer to 6. But if you look at the Dynasty Dummy rankings, you see LSU at 6 there as well. And just a reminder on these are not a poll between Tony and I's, but a complete poll within our friend group that we do an AP style vote where all of our friends submit a ballot and then we tally up the points and get our Dynasty Dummy rankings. So this is really reflective of 5 individuals and what we collectively think as a group. And I think you can see that we like Vanderbilt, we like Georgia Tech a lot. We like these teams that might be getting a little less respect, including Miami. I think Miami this week was the first time we didn't have a unanimous number 1, where Ohio State was a unanimous, but Miami gets 4 out of the 5 first place votes this week, just missing out on that unanimous ranking. But I think you'll see us be a little bit higher on the group of 5 with Tulane and USF also sitting inside this top 25, and also UNLV. So shout out to Vegas on that one.
I was muted. That doesn't even bring in the fact that some of these other 3-0 teams that are just on the cusp of getting ranked here. And I know for a couple on my end, one of them is North Texas, another American Conference team that they're 3-0. They're having a pretty good season so far. They haven't had too many hiccups and stuff. So that's one team that I think should be on the watch list here, come for our rankings at least.
Yeah, I agree. The American Conference is looking really good this year. They got some really good teams at the top, including Memphis too, which we haven't mentioned. So definitely think that they'll cannibalize each other a little bit once conference play starts. But one of these teams out of the American, I do believe, is going to get that Group of 5 playoff bid this year, unless if they royally screw this up and they are sitting on the outside looking in come playoff time.
Yeah, it's right now. I think it's the Americans to lose. They have so many good teams, and it doesn't seem like a lot of them are going to end up playing each other. And even if it's just one of them plays each other, like for example, I know Tulane only plays Memphis out of these top teams so far. So it's going to be interesting to see come conference championship time which one of them will actually, or which two will actually end up and actually get to host the game as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that home field advantage is going to be huge for that conference championship game. So I know we got a lot of games to jump in here too. So we wanted to start off with some storylines as well. We first want to say that Texas A&M's Bryce Anderson is doing well. A&M released a statement that he had no catastrophic injury and that he returned to campus with the team. We're very thankful for that. It was a very scary situation last week at the end of the first half. So very thankful for that. Wanted to lead off this week's episode with just a little shout out to Bryce. Hope you're getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. You hate to see that anything like that happen in any game. So it's good to hear that he'll be okay in it, and he's back home at least on campus and stuff. But on to the next one here, the Florida LSU pregame scuffle we had, where Florida assistant coach Jabbar Jalouk slapped LSU safety Joel Rogers and caused an absolute scuffle before the game. And it's bizarre to hear that came from a coach, not a player, not anyone, a student that could be working for the team, a coach, someone who's paid by the university to help the football team, and that's just totally unacceptable. He is suspended 3 games by the SEC and the team, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if, possibly more to come from that. That's just something you cannot do. It's just totally unacceptable as a coach. You're supposed to prevent this, not actually instigate it.
Yeah, you just can't do this as a coach, man. That's a knucklehead play. You're not supposed to be the one, like Tony said, instigating this. You need to be the one getting your guys out of bad situations, not putting them in there. I just can't believe this happened. He actually used to be an LSU coach too, I believe, in 2016.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he regrets it right now, and it's just a knucklehead play, knucklehead move. I'm glad no one was injured from this, but I didn't realize a coach was involved until later yesterday. Apologies. I thought this was just a pregame player scuffle, so I didn't think much of it, and then they came out saying it was the coach, and you just can't do that. You really can't.
Yeah, just insane to think that he would think that would be okay and he would get away with it nonetheless. But it just goes to show that it's everyone's watched like a hawk, especially in the SEC. So hopefully nothing like that will ever happen again, because at least coming from a coach, I don't mind the occasional pregame scuffle if a heated rivalry and stuff where pushing and shoving or just back and forth with
some
words.
Players jawing. Honestly, I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't escalate into anything more serious. That's part of what makes football great. But as a coach, you have to remove yourself from that situation.
Yeah.
You cannot let your emotions get the best of you, and he definitely did right there.
Yeah, it's just, we've said it 100 times, we'll say it 100 more times, just totally unacceptable. But another
Yeah.
thing that's being a coach is considering unacceptable is quarterback play in Colorado with Deion Sanders yet again going back to Caden Salter after starting Ryan Staub the previous week, where he just did not look good against Houston. He had flashes here and there, but nothing crazy as they just completely crumbled in that game. Um, don't have any, consistency in the QB room in Colorado right now, and it's looking like things could get shaky over there. And we'll have to see how Caden Salter can do in this upcoming game, and if he can finally solidify that spot. But right now, it just doesn't look good over there.
Yeah, I really think that Dion's just trying to get to next season in the quarterback room. They have the true freshman Lewis. Think he views him as the future of the program. Maybe just not ready to play. He wants to have him sit back and learn. So I think you just got to go with a guy and stick with him. I think Salter's your best option to win personally, but I guess we'll see how he plays this week. And it's a situation we'll continue to monitor. Just kind of a carousel of quarterbacks right now. But speaking
Yeah.
of carousels, the spring transfer portal. If you did not know, the Division One Administration Committee did vote this week, as of today, to approve of a change that eliminates the spring transfer window. So previously there was a winter and spring transfer portal. The winter one occurring early in December after bowl game selections on that Monday, and then the spring one occurred in April. So now they have completely abolished the spring one, but they have not signed off on adjusting the winter one, where the idea is to move the transfer portal to a 10-day window from January 2nd to 11th for both FBS and FCS. And this would be for right after the quarterfinals of the playoff games.
Yep. Yep.
So, interesting move here on where we're landing. I think this is something we saw coming, though.
Yeah, I know. I know. I think it's going to be something that could absolutely benefit the players. Just to note that they do have 10 days to enter the portal, but they are under no deadline to actually make a commitment to the school once they do enter it. So they'll have those 10 days to decide
Yep.
to if they want to enter the portal, but they do not have to decide within those 10 days on the school they would like to go to. So I think that'll help a
Yep.
little bit. Especially with how later in the season it is. There's not that many programs that will be left in actually playing by that time. It'd just be your playoff teams. But I think this is a step in the right direction. I think the way the portal has been handled these last couple years has just been not great. So we'll have to see how this proceeds on, and I think it's going to be a good thing. And I know there's still some kinks to iron out in this, but I think it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I did also want to note that for the teams still competing in the college football playoff, those players would have 5 days after their final postseason game to enter the portal. So it fixes that issue that we saw last year where players were still in the playoff. I forget which team it was, but their backup, maybe
Penn
Ohio
State.
State. Their backup,
Penn State's quarterback.
Penn State.
Backs up, yeah,
Yeah,
Penn State's backup.
backup. Yeah, hit the backup quarterback, forced to make that tough decision to enter the portal. So I think this is good for players in that perspective. I think it's a step in the right direction to not have such a mess of free agency. I know last year in the spring portal alone, 1,100 student athletes transferred. So definitely will be a huge shift. And I think something that we're going to want to monitor too is potential pushback from players on restricting their rights to move in the era of, players having their, players' rights, players' responsibility. They might be less optimistic on having their movements restricted in this regard. Personally, though, I'm with you, Tony. I think this is good for the sport and will allow teams and players to focus on finishing the season instead of just having a hodgepodge of bowl games, end of season, conference championship, playoff, and transfer portal season just into one mixing bowl.
Yeah, it'll be good to see some consistency with how this portal moves, and like you said, with how it lined up last year, especially in the winter one, where you get these players that like just they play this whole season and then it comes bowl game and everyone opts out to go to the portal to do whatever else, and it's like maybe we'll actually see some more competitive bowl games now that players will have more time to decide, and maybe they get one last game in with their team before they do end up deciding to leave. So, but speaking of someone who vital or utilized the portal to his advantage, we're going to go to some Heisman hopefuls here. And our new number one is Miami quarterback Carson Beck, who is now sitting at plus 700 according to MGM Sportsbook. He's the new odds-on favorite, and I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about him several times. He's looked sharp. He looks like that player that everyone thought he was going to be last year for Georgia. So he's going to get a chance to improve his odds against Florida at home when the Gators come to town. So sitting at plus 700, new odds on favorite. I like the money on this, to be honest. I think Miami has a chance to be really great this year, which means that their best player has a chance at the Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
But Oklahoma's best player, John Mateer, sitting at plus 900. His odds stay the same this week after they demolished Temple. He's looked great this year. I know you've been high on him. He's getting an opportunity at home against a ranked Auburn team. So if he can have a strong performance, he might jump Carson Beck on odds-on favorite this week.
Yeah, I think he's got a great chance to do it and a great chance to prove it this week when he gets that tough SEC opponent. So, but moving into the next one, I think a sneaky sort of bet here, if you were going to do it, is Oregon quarterback Dante Moore, sitting at plus 1100. Same odds, but that Auburn, or excuse me, that Oregon team just looks phenomenal again. They've won every game pretty handedly. And their offense has a big deal about it, so he'll have his chance to prove it in a rivalry game that we'll dive into against Oregon State at home.
Yeah, he's looked sharp. Oregon's looked sharp. So I think they'll continue this trend. I think his odds will continue to climb. Speaking of climbing, Georgia quarterback Gunnar Stockton climbed up to the fourth best odds this week after a great game against Tennessee, while LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier fell from, he was the odds-on favorite last week. Now he's sitting at the fifth best odds after a game that they won against Florida, but the offense struggled, so I'm not
Yeah.
surprised to see odds makers shift this. While A&M quarterback Marcel Reed, Texas A&M that is, quarterback Marcel Reed, and Tennessee quarterback Joey Aguilar climbed up to plus 1,500 after not starting on MGM's board. So huge jumps for both of them this week after two really great performances.
Yeah, and they deserve it. They've both been phenomenal from start to finish so far. It'll be great to see them just keep balling out. And like I said in our recap episode, if Marcel Reed can unlock that deep ball a little better, I think he's going to be a name to reckon with. But someone I want to shout out that I think deserves more recognition is our boy Haynes King. He deserves to be
Love
a
that
little
guy.
higher on some of these Heisman lists because the amount of stuff he is doing for that team is not should not be underappreciated here. I mean, they just beat a ranked Clemson team at home. So if they can continue to string this along, I think it'll be sooner rather than later we see his name pop up in here.
Yeah. I think he's hurting a little bit for missing that second game against Gardner Webb.
Yeah.
But I think if you ask the Dynasty Dummies who their favorite player is right now, I think everyone would say Haynes King, a guy who just goes out there and has no regard for personal safety, runs the rock, throws it. You love to see it. So I hope to see Georgia Tech keep winning and to see the King keep rising.
Yeah, it would be really fun to see that. We all love him. He's a great player. But we're just going to jump right into the slate for this upcoming weekend. And with a couple of matchups we want to monitor, starting off with Iowa traveling to Rutgers Friday at 8 p.m. Rutgers is a sneaky 3-0 team so far. They've been under the radar, but they are undefeated. And it'll be really good to see them get a pretty, I would say, decent Big Ten opponent in Iowa. While they will be at home, which will be good for them, but it'll be a nice game to watch here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be a fun matchup to watch Friday night, a great Friday night game. And then starting off Saturday slates, we have Arkansas traveling to Memphis, P4 going to the group of five. Memphis, another 3-0 team, floating a little under the radar. Chance to get a really marquee win against an SEC opponent at home. Chance to be 4-0 in that competitive American Conference like we've been talking about. This could be a huge win for them after USF fell last week. So a really good opportunity for the Tigers here.
Yeah, I agree. They have a chance to make a name for themselves in that American Conference with a great win against an SEC team. But moving on to another Big Ten matchup here, we got Maryland going to Wisconsin on Saturday. Maryland will be looking to be 4-0 for the first time since 2021, with their quarterback being pretty good so far, despite having that freshman status. So I think that'll be a name to watch pretty soon here. Could possibly hit the portal if he keeps this up and maybe go with some bigger aspirations. But I just want to quickly note that Wisconsin's starting quarterback, Billy Edwards, is questionable after he did not play last week versus Bama.
Yeah, I think Maryland fans might cringe to hear you say transfer portal Malik Washington in the same sentence, but he's been playing really great. So, if Maryland can keep winning, the ceiling will keep climbing for them. They have a tough Big Ten schedule, but they've looked good so far. So a chance to go 4-0, which is a huge deal. 2 wins away from a bowl game already.
Yeah. And then on to the next one, a team I had mentioned earlier in North Texas traveling to face our armed forces in Army on Saturday. North Texas is trying to keep up the pace with this competitive American team, kicking off their American Conference play against a decent Army team.
Yeah, you can never count out the military academies. North Texas really needs to keep the pace with Tulane, USF, and Memphis. I think they've been under the radar as well. So this is a chance for them to really prove themselves. You don't know what Army team's going to show up. Is it the team that lost to Tarleton State, or is it the team that beat K-State? So we'll have to see there, but I think it's an interesting matchup, especially with an interconference game, where we also have Michigan traveling to Nebraska in a Big Ten showdown. Nebraska has a chance to get a statement win at home, but can they show up? They have never, not that they've never, they haven't shown up for big games in a long time. If they can beat Michigan and start off 4-0, that's going to be huge for them. Nebraska with Dylan Royal they have a chance to do something here. I think the question for Michigan, though, is can they get the offense going, because it struggled against Oklahoma. If not, it really could be a long day for the Wolverines.
Yeah, they're going to probably rely heavy on Bryce Underwood to create some magic, and we'll have to see if they can kind of just let him fly and let him do what he does best. So that'll be a good game to watch here. But moving on to the next one here, we have good old UNC coming down here to Orlando and facing UCF on Saturday. And
I think you mean Central.
Did I say something else?
No. Oh, did you not see what Belichick was calling UCF all week?
No, what did he call them?
He's been calling them just Central all week. So he hasn't been calling them Central Florida, just Central, Central. I didn't realize you hadn't seen that. It's been a kick for me. And Central even changed their official Twitter name to it as well. But no, you said the right name. Sorry for
okay. No, I thought I'm sitting here thinking I'm calling like UCF USF or something. But no, that's hilarious.
No, you're good.
Leave it to Bill Belichick to do something like that. He's just the king of doing sort of stuff like that. But we'll have to see if he can get it going and get his first P4 win after an abysmal showing against the TCU team in Week 1.
Yeah, did not look great, but has a good chance. UCF is not as good as TCU in my opinion. So I think this is going to be a close game. I think Belichick might be able to squeeze this one out, though, and get UNC moving in the right direction. But South Carolina is hoping to get back on the right direction when they travel to Mizzou Saturday at 7 p.m. The big question is Lenore Sellers going to play? He left last week with a concussion. Last report I saw did not look optimistic, which will be a huge loss for South Carolina. And if that's the case, I'm looking for Missouri to dominate. They got a chance to really get a statement win against a decent South Carolina team. So if they can't get the job done with against South Carolina without Lenore Sellers, that does not bode well for them later in the year.
Yeah, this is a big chance for Missouri to get that marquee win on a highly touted South Carolina team with or without Lenora Sellers. But you always want to see the best teams have their best players, so it'll be a bummer to see if Lenora Sellers can't play there. But
Yeah, and,
moving on
and
to the
hoping he's all right as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Concussions
Yeah,
are serious. Yeah,
you can never, you don't ever want to rush too quickly back from concussions. You want to make sure you're
no.
taking the proper precautions and whatnot because it can change your life quite literally. So, um, moving on to the next one here, I know you wanted to touch some light on it. Is Toledo traveling to Western Michigan on Saturday? With Toledo being a sneaky good team this year.
Yeah, Western Michigan. I don't think they're much this year, but Toledo is sitting at 2-1. Their one loss is week one on the road versus Kentucky. I think they're a sneaky good team out of the MAC. I think they'll win the conference this year. So really just wanted to give them a little bit of props here. So looking for them to win big. But another team I think that's going to win big this weekend is Georgia Tech when Temple comes to town. Haynes King, we've talked about him enough. I think he's the king of Dynasty Dummies right now. They're just looking to continue their winning ways and, get a really big statement win here.
Yeah, we saw Temple just get dismantled by Oklahoma in a game that I thought could have been a sneaky upset game with Temple as they were undefeated going into that game, but Oklahoma came in and just dog walked them. So I think Georgia Tech is going to do something close to that, being as it is at home and they're riding that momentum from beating Clemson. So it'll be a good one to see and see if Haynes King can put himself into that Heisman conversation.
Yeah, definitely. It has a chance to have a big Heisman game here. But next game we wanted to look at here, WVU is going to be traveling to Kansas Saturday at 6 p.m. Big question for me is, can we get their minds right after that emotional high of a backyard brawl? If you want to check out my recap of being at Ground Zero for the revival of Rich Rodriguez and WVU football, please go check out our recap. I was there at the game. It was one of the best sporting experiences of my life, but that comes with such an emotional high. It's hard to bounce back after a game like that and get your mind focused. So WVU, Rich Rod's really going to have to get them locked in. While on the other hand, Kansas needs to prove that they're the better team. I think on paper they are. West Virginia is just going to have a lot of emotions on their side.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's really hard to come back down after that emotional high, like you say. Getting a win like that in that rivalry is always massive, and you could celebrate it for a day, but then on Monday you got to get right back to work. So we'll have to see if West Virginia can do that, and albeit can Kansas kind of solidify themselves here and get back on track after a game that I thought they were going to win against Missouri a couple weeks ago, and it just seemed to almost derail the hype a little bit and kind of stop their train. But I think that they can still be a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that's a good chance for them to get focused, get right. That Missouri game just kind of slipped away from them there in that last quarter.
Yeah. But another one I want to point out is the team that I forgot in my poll that I'm still sorry about. BYU traveling to ECU, another P4 going to a G5, and what I think will be a very entertaining game.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. I love when the big schools travel to the little schools. I think it's great for the sport, great for the brands. I think this is going to be a fun game. But a game that I think is a little bit more fun is the battle for the Trojan Horse, Michigan State at USC Saturday night. I think this is just a fun matchup. I've seen the memes on Twitter. They should have a trophy of a Trojan horse. They should be battling for that. I think it's hilarious. But in all seriousness, both teams are 3-0. USC's receiving votes. They have my vote. It's an early season Big Ten matchup. This one's a big one for both teams. I think USC is going to get the job done, but I think it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, I think we should all riot if there's not a giant wooden horse on the sideline of that game. It would be a crime to humanity if they don't do something along the lines with it. But it'll be a good team or a good matchup nonetheless, and I think it could be a very interesting one come with it being an early Big Ten matchup. And me too, I have USC ranked on my poll as well. So this will be a chance, I think, for USC to kind of, solidify themselves as a top 25 team.
Yeah, definitely. And then looking at some bounce back games for some teams that get a chance to get right this week. Purdue is going to be traveling to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Notre Dame still winless. They are not going to be receiving votes from the Dynasty Dummies if they are still winless. If they lose this game to Purdue, I think their playoff chances are cooked. They have to bounce back big this week.
I agree 100%. This is a game for Notre Dame that you got to play it like it's the national championship, because your season and your season hopes could be on the line. And to be at home is going to help them. I think they'll probably get that crowd behind them to help lift it up and really go out there and show what kind of team they can be, because they got to get that first win. But another team that has a bounce back game, UAB is traveling to Neyland to face Tennessee on Saturday. I think Tennessee is going to be angry at themselves, and they're going to go out there and they are going to take care of business against a team like UAB. The way Joey Aguilar has been playing for Tennessee is otherworldly, so I think they're going to go out there and they're just going to throttle them to really get back on track.
Yeah, I don't think this will be much of a contest. No offense, UAB and their fans. I think Tennessee's just going to be angry. And a team that needs to come out angry if it wants to get its season back on schedule is Clemson when they face Syracuse at home this Saturday. Can they get right? How will it look? I think the key for them is Klubnik. He's got to get the ball going on offense. Clemson, admittedly, has not looked great, have not lived up to that preseason hype.
Yeah, I agree with you. Clemson's season and playoff hopes are also on the line with this game. And Syracuse is not a bad team at all, in my opinion. So
No,
I think it'll
not
be
at
a
all.
little. I think it'll be a little tougher than they expect, and we'll have to see if Dabo can bring that anger that he had in his press conference this week, where he was almost yelling at the reporters and the naysayers, saying like, "Oh, do they
Yeah,
not want to win anymore? I've been winning. I've won this league, and I've been in the playoffs." And we'll
yeah,
have to see if he can implement that on the field, because it's one thing to sit there behind the mic and talk; it's another thing to actually show it on the field, and they
yep,
have not this season. So
yeah. I agree with you. I mean, Virginia Tech fans are saying they'd love to bring Dabo in if Clemson's done with him, and I can't blame them. I don't think Dabo's going anywhere. That's just Dabo being Dabo. I do think they're going to get right this week, but if not, there's a lot of bigger questions to be had, but not to do with Dabo's job. But shifting gears a little bit to some rivalry games that are going to be taking place this week. NC State's going to be traveling to Duke within the North Carolina Triangle. Duke has a chance to get back in the win column after starting off 1-2, but NC State has a better opportunity to really solidify themselves as a real ACC contender. I know I'm the only Dynasty dummy with NC State ranked. Shout out my buddy Jack. He called me out. He wanted to know why NC State wasn't ranked, and I told him if they got the job done against Wake Forest, there's a good chance of it. They're ranked in my book, but they got to get past Duke to keep that ranking, and despite the record, I don't think Duke's an easy task for anyone, especially in a rivalry game.
yeah, I agree with you. NC State, they were on the cusp for me when I was looking through teams that were undefeated and had solidified themselves. NC State was up there, and I would have probably put them just outside the top 25. They would have been probably my next five up sort of thing. They're definitely a team I will be keeping my close eye on here. And like you said, Duke is not going to be an easy team despite the record. They still do have a solid team and a solid offense, but we'll have to see if Duke can for once get ahead of the game and not play from behind. So
Yeah.
that'll be a great game to watch, especially with Duke being at home. But moving on to a next rivalry here, we have Oregon State traveling to Oregon on Saturday in the Civil War rivalry. And just a quick note here that you had mentioned, where they will not play each other next year, which is a crime in itself, and possibly the foreseeable future. But they are working to have more games scheduled from 2027 to 2032, which would be a great thing for the sport. But it's just an absolute crime that they don't. It's not guaranteed that they play every year.
Yeah, I think we'll just lump both of these games into it. The Apple Cup showdown is happening this weekend too. Washington traveling to Washington State. Fortunately, they do have this game locked through 2028. However, after that, there's no certainty, and the same is true with the Civil War. I think you mentioned it's a crime that these games are not a lock. They should be occurring each and every year. In-state rivals, storied histories. I, this is why conference realignment is somewhat destroying the sport here. With the regionality of college football is what I think makes it so great.
Yeah.
Playing those conference rivals, playing those regional rivals, and now you have Oregon playing Illinois on a Saturday night instead of playing UCLA, Cal, Oregon State, those types of schools. I want to see both of these rivalries continue in perpetuity. I guess we'll have to see what happens, but nothing is locked for either for the permanent future.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you that the regionality plays a huge part in how these rivalries are created and how these games go. The conference realignment has really thrown a wrench into everything with these rivalries, and it's a shame to see because some of them are very historic and they should stay on the right side of history, hopefully. But we'll have to wait and see because it won't be long until we get another conference realignment bid here. So
Now it's coming, but speaking of other rivalries, let's shift to our must-watch games of the week. These are the games that we think are going to be the best. Maybe a little bit biased for our personal teams in this one, but hey, it's our podcast, so we get
yep.
to talk about what we want. But the first game that we want to highlight, Florida's traveling to Miami for College Game Day. Why is College Game Day going to this game? If they were going to go to Miami, they should have gone last week for USF, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's one of those question marks where I want to know who's in that room making that decision about who and where they're going. And it makes no sense. If Florida was still undefeated, ranked, sure, I would totally understand that. But now they're abysmal. They haven't looked good just about the entire year. And Miami is one of the, if not, in my opinion, the best team in the nation. So this looks like it could be an absolute bloodbath in the favor of Miami. Um, but they're there. We're gonna have to deal with it. Hopefully, they pick better next week. But I think Miami
Got
is
to get
just
to
gonna.
that SEC school, man. Got to get to
Yeah, they ESPN and their SEC bias, so it's very evident seeing as how they have money in it. So, but I think Miami is just going to absolutely close the case on Florida in any sort of talks of anything, possibly even the Billy Napier story with him being on the hot seat. Um, they're going to come out, probably start quick, and just run away with it. And if
yeah.
Florida cannot get going, it's just going to end a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think the key for Miami here is to get Carson Beck starting off hot and just don't let the foot off the pedal. We've mentioned how great he's been. He's 800 yards, 7 touchdowns this season so far. They can't give Florida any opportunity to stay in this game. They need to start out quick. Uh, and I think ultimately we might be getting to a stretch where Billy Napier is going to be coaching for his job this season. He's below 500 all time with Florida now. So I think that seat is getting a little bit hotter each and every day for him.
Yeah, I think it's a little more than hot. I think it's quite literally on fire right now, and he's trying to put it out. So we'll have to see if he can do it. But it's also going to come down to the play of his quarterback, DJ Lagway, who has looked just terrible, especially last week, throwing 5 interceptions, which is just never a recipe for success. And, you made a little note here saying, can he look like the quarterback we thought he'd be? And I immediately thought, no. This team has just looked abysmal. The offense has not looked good the entire season. And it just seems like nothing is clicking for them. And it could be the system. It could be the system that he's in. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that DJ Lagway is the worst quarterback I've ever seen, but he is playing just not great. And it very much could be the system. We never know. But that whole team has just got to get it going from the start and make Carson Beck uncomfortable. But with the way Miami's defense has been revitalized this season, I think DJ Lagway is going to be the most uncomfortable because the Miami D-line
Yeah.
is full of grown men that will make his life a living hell.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't want to pin it all on Lagway. I kind of goes down to coaching. I don't think they're helping him too much when it comes down to it. He was injured this offseason. He didn't get as many reps in camp as you would have liked. So when you're a coach, you want to try to help your quarterback. And last week against LSU, asking him to throw the ball near 50 times is not a recipe for success. I think it's safe to say we're both taking Miami in this one, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Miami by multiple scores. I'd even go. You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Miami by 20 plus.
Wow. Okay. I like it. I got Miami too. I think there's a lot better chance of Miami winning by 20 plus than Florida to win. I'm going to take Miami 45-20. That's what I'll say.
Okay, yeah, I like it.
That's what I'm going to roll with there.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, football scores are so hard; you never know.
Yeah.
I'll go with the spread here and just say Miami 20 plus for sure. If I had money, I might bet on that. But moving on to our next game here that we wanted to highlight as a must watch is Arizona State traveling to Baylor on Saturday in a primetime game. This is a massive game for both teams here.
Yeah, it's funny enough. Only the second overall meeting between these teams, and the first one since ASU won in 1990. But this is an incredibly important Big 12 early season matchup. Both teams sitting at 2-1 with an out of conference loss. ASU has not looked like the world beaters they did at the end of last season. I think this is a chance for both teams to really establish themselves as one of the premier teams in the Big 12, though. Get off conference playoff right. I think Baylor's looked really good. Baylor, for me, is a team that is sitting outside of my rankings with a chance to, by a couple games from now, be ranked pretty high once some other teams start falling. So I think this is a big game for both ones, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, with the early stumble for ASU, I think hurt them a lot more than Baylor's did, seeing as how Baylor's loss is turning into a quality lesson here. So, and not to say that Mississippi State can't turn into a quality lesson, but
they're ranked for me.
Yeah, they're ranked for me as well. So, I think the Auburn one is looking better at least in the AP eyes. I don't have Auburn. Sure. I don't have Auburn ranked personally yet. They are close, I would say. But this game,
and according to our rules, I don't think either one of us can rank Baylor until we rank Auburn because of the head-to-head. So that is something to note. We really do value these head-to-head matchups, and we do think about them.
Absolutely. I think about it all the time when I'm going through my rankings of have these teams played each other, and if they have, who won, because they will be above the other person. I cannot put them above a person that they lost to, realistically. I don't care unless your entire starting offense was out injured, there's no way you're getting ranked above. But
some extremes have to be taken.
Yeah, there would have to be a lot of asterisks over it. But, we don't consider those. We consider what actually happened. So, the key player that I want to point out is Baylor quarterback Sawyer Robertson. The dude has been playing lights out all season, has thrown for 1,070 yards, 10 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions, which is crazy. He had those back-to-back 400-yard games at the beginning of the season. And I still think he's a dark horse for the Heisman. I know his odds aren't the greatest right now, but I think he keeps this up and he beats this Auburn team. He could very much be in the conversation. Or Arizona State.
Yeah. He has looked phenomenal. He's played lights out like you mentioned. So I do think if Baylor keeps winning, Sawyer Robinson's going to be a big Heisman conversation. But a quarterback that I want to look at in this game is ASU quarterback Sam Leavitt. This is a guy I think a lot of people have tagged as a top 10 quarterback going into this season.
Yep.
He started off a little slow this year, 530 yards, a 5-3 touchdown to interception ratio. He has added another 130 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. But I think in order for ASU to get the ball rolling in the right direction, because they started off slow last week against Texas State, who is a very respectable Sun Belt team, but they need to get the ball going a little bit faster. And I think the key to helping Sam Levitt unlock his full potential is running back Raleek Brown. He's averaging 97 yards per game. He rushed 12 times for 144 yards last week. That's just, I mean, video game numbers. That's like what Tony does to me when we play in NCAA. I just
Run the
can't stop the
rock.
run, man.
Run the
Yeah,
rock.
and I think he's the key to victory for him. I think if they can get him going, then it's going to be a really great year for Arizona State and a great game for him. But those are the two players from ASU I really have my eye on.
Yeah, one other ASU player I want to point out is their star receiver Jordan Tyson. He is highly touted as a possible first round pick in the draft, and he's just a fantastic player. He leads the team in receiving yards with 314. The next closest is their tight end with 80 yards. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty drastic difference. I think if they want to really unlock their offense and help Sam Levitt, play to his potential, they probably need to spread the ball out a little more. He's had 20. Jordan Tyson's had 24 catches, while the tight end is the next closest with 7. So it really goes to show that they are heavily relying on him, and albeit
Yeah.
for good reason, because he's a fantastic receiver. He made some crazy plays this past week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a fantastic player, and I would absolutely give him the ball as much as I could as well. But you got to be able to rely on these other players that are there, and hopefully they can, right the ship, get it going, and, really show Baylor that they're a legit team.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think there's only really one last thing to ask, and it's who do you got, Tony?
Ooh, this is going to be a close one. I think it'll
I
be
agree.
a very close game and come down to it. I think I'm going to go with Baylor. I'm going to say in a nail biter, probably off a last-second field goal. I think the way they've been playing since that early loss week 1, they've been playing reinvigorated. They look like a much better team, riding off of their quarterback's play. I think I'm just going to have to go with them right now.
Yeah, I am gonna have to agree with you. I think Baylor just looks like the better team right now. I think Arizona State might have more talent. I just don't think it's meshed together. Baylor's played really well. Even in that loss to Auburn, they didn't look bad. I think they're going to get the job done, though, and Sawyer Robinson might be putting up some big numbers. I agree with you. It's going to be a nail-biter, but I think Baylor's going to squeak this one out.
Yeah, that's just one of those games where it's almost too close to call. I mean, I agree
Yeah.
in the sense of ASU's got the talent. It's just a matter of if that talent's going to show up that night. So we'll have to wait and see on Saturday. But moving on to the next one here, we want to highlight is SMU traveling to TCU Saturday in an afternoon game. This was this is the last scheduled meeting between the two for the Iron Skillet.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Apple Cup and Civil War. This one falls right into the boat of why are crimes being committed against the game we love. This has been a matchup that has taken place every year since 1995, with the exception of 7 years during that 110-year period. One of those was COVID. A few of those was because of SMU's death penalty. This is a matchup that should be played every year. From what I understand, TCU is actually kind of at the front of it, quote unquote, wanting to better balance their schedule and not prioritize the out of conference rivalry games. This is another thing that has to do with conference realignment. These schools are only 30 miles apart. Dallas Fort Worth area. They should be playing every year. I do think that this is going to be a great game, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a shame that, from what it looks like, TCU being the ones that are trying to wean their way out, it seems like. But with only being 30 miles apart, you'd think it would be a gimme game almost. It's absurd.
Easy for travel.
Exactly.
Fans can travel.
Exactly. It just breeds a great environment, and you could even go to throw it in, a bigger stadium if you wanted to and stuff. But it's a shame that it's the last scheduled one, and hopefully it will find its way back. But some key players to point out here is, of course, SMU quarterback Kevin Jennings has played well this season, but I think SMU really needs him to take that next step to really solidify themselves as a legit team coming out of the ACC. And I know he was at one point I would say kind of a little sleeper for the Heisman coming off of that strong finish he had last season. People thought he was going to take that step, but with that choke job against Baylor,
Yeah.
it goes to show that I guess their lead wasn't enough, so you got to go out there and give us some more. So I think they're going to heavily rely on him to really get that team going.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it starts and ends with Jennings there. And I think for TCU, I think they have a little bit more balanced of a team here when it comes to the offense. But I do want to highlight quarterback Josh Hoover. He's played well, but he needs to take that next step in a different sense than Jennings. Jennings is already playing very well, but he really needs to take the level to elite. Where Hoover, I'm really wanting him to really show some bigger flashes. Something he's done really well this year, though, is limit the turnovers, which is going to be key for this game. I think whoever wins this game is going to get a huge push in the AP poll, especially TCU. They'll be undefeated with a great win against SMU. SMU, despite the loss to Baylor, that lesson to Baylor, which is, I think, going to age very well. I think this would be a huge out-of-conference win for them. So I really think the winner of this game is setting themselves up to crack into the rankings or crack back into them for SMU.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The SMU, at least on our side, the SMU setting themselves up could also really depend on the Baylor game. If Baylor goes and loses, then that just means that SMU is now doomed because for us, we'd have to rank Arizona State and then if we wanted to rank SMU, we'd have to rank Baylor. So at least on our side of things, it really could doom SMU depending on how that game falls. And you never know; it could even come down to that in the AP, where if both of them have, you would think both of them have the same amount of wins and losses and are sitting in the same boat, you'd give the edge to the head-to-head, but we've seen it where sometimes that really doesn't matter, and with some of these voters, you never know. And we'll have to see what the playoff committee thinks of these things, but it'll be an interesting one to see here. So, who do you got in this one?
I think this is a tough one, just like Arizona State and Baylor, man. It's a tough one. I think I'm gonna have to ride with TCU though. I think that they're gonna get the job done. I think being at home does favor them a little bit. I think they're just a little bit more of a balanced team, but I wouldn't be surprised if SMU pulls this one off. I think it's going to be a very close game.
I was leaning a little bit towards TCU, but I think I might go SMU on this one. I think they have enough around them to get it done. I think Kevin Jennings is still a very good quarterback, and I think they have learned their lesson and will come back and face this good TCU team, and I think they make a mark on it and say this is where we get it done. This is where our season really turns around and takes that step forward to become a contender.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a close game, just like our next game, Auburn at Oklahoma Saturday afternoon. Should College Game Day be here? I mean, I think this is a much better matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you here. This absolutely would have been a top. I could probably name like 5 games that are better than the one they picked, and this would be up there as one of them. It's a shame. I don't know if they just didn't want to go back purely because it was at Oklahoma again, but I don't think that should really have a say.
I hadn't thought about that, to be honest. I hadn't considered that it was in Norman just the other week. That probably is a big reason why they vacated 2 SEC teams.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're using up all their SEC teams early, so they're going to hit themselves earlier and like, oh my God, we can't go back.
Yeah.
But when it comes to these sort of bigger games, especially early in the season when you're kind of just basing it off of a couple of weeks, I don't think you should be that scared to try and go back because what I mean, if this was number one and number two, are you gonna, not go there? Like, come
Yeah,
on.
I agree, but I also part of me disagrees. Think if it's that top 5, top 10 matchup, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
But I like seeing them give shine to other schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I had forgotten that they had gone to Norman, but this one very much deserved college game day consideration as well. And I think it's going to be a early season SEC positioning battle. Whichever team wins this game is going to really get a leg up in those rankings, especially Auburn. They could take a huge jump in the AP poll. Might get ranked for Dynasty Dummies. We all have Oklahoma right now, but no Auburn. So I think this is a huge one rankings wise and just getting that early lead in the SEC.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one, and I think it's going to come down to how Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer can play. He's been phenomenal so far this season. He has really looked comfortable and just playing well, and not doing too much, not doing too little, sort of thing. He has thrown for 944 yards, 5 touchdowns through the air, but also has another 4 on the ground. So it'll be, if he can play a solid game without, too many turnovers, I think they'll really set themselves up for success.
Yeah, Mentir, he's been great for them this year. I think the player to watch from Auburn though is running back Jeremiah Cobb. He's averaging nearly 7 yards a carry, has 314 yards and 4 tutties so far this year. Look for him to continue to be a workhorse in order to get a win here against a tough OU defense. But Mateer is going to be the player to watch overall in this game.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's just playing too well to not be that guy right now, and it'll be, I think it's going to come down to who makes the most mistakes, if any. So, I think I haven't followed quite closely on it yet, but is Jaden Ott back and fully healthy?
I haven't seen a lot of reports. I mean, I believe he was pretty much healthy last week. Um, it's definitely something I'd like to see a little bit more on. But yeah, he's definitely on on the right trajectory. But I've said it before in a previous episode. I think him getting going and getting healthy is going to be huge for OU, especially later in the season. And I have a feeling they're just not rushing him back into things.
Yeah, and I wouldn't either because, those late season games, especially the dog days of the SEC, can really take a toll on you. So his health will probably be very key for them come the end of the season. So I agree in the sense that don't rush him back if you don't need to. But if he's there and he's available and you can use him in the right way, then yeah, absolutely use him. But
Yeah, and I just did a little quick search for Jaden Ott. And I apologize. I should have had this prepared as someone I know I've been watching. It seems like it's just not far enough along as where they would like, and is still struggling to fit a little bit into the OU offense based off of these OU beat writers. He's still listed third on the depth chart as far as I'm aware, but I think he's too good of a player to you got to figure out ways to make him successful. If he's struggling to fit into the offense, you got to figure out schemes to have him in winning positions.
absolutely. I mean, you need to make sure that your best players are out on the field so that you can have the best plays out there. So they'll have to find a way to get him out there. And I'm sure the injury didn't help that he probably didn't get as much, reps and stuff being a transfer. And it's, it is hard to come into a whole new school and learn new stuff. So I don't blame him too much, but I think that'll be a name to watch definitely down the line. So, but who you gonna take in this SEC showdown?
I'm rolling Boomer Sooner. I think they're going to get the job done in Norman. I think they're the better team. I know I was down on OU earlier in the year, but I'm a little bit higher on them than Auburn. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think Oklahoma wins this one fairly comfortably.
I'm gonna agree with you there. I think Oklahoma gets it done at home, albeit Auburn has looked good recently. And they did end up getting votes and getting ranked in the AP as well. But I think Oklahoma, like you said, is just the more complete team. They're going to be comfortable. They're going to be at home. That they're going to be rocking there. So I think Oklahoma gets it done.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a good one though, but I know there's a game that you want to talk a lot about. Tulane traveling to Ole Miss Saturday at 3:30. What do you have for us, Tony?
Roll wave, baby. After coming off of a great win against our former quarterback in Darian Mensah, heads quickly turned to this. To me, was probably the biggest game of the season, purely in the sense of how they want to solidify themselves as a legit G5 contender, and traveling to an SEC opponent in Ole Miss who is ranked. I think it's a chance for Tulane to really slam down the door and say we are a legit team and you have to consider us, because there was talks of especially this week in the AP, seeing as how a winless team is still ranked and you got a 3-0 team like Tulane who has two P4 wins unranked, and I know they're getting
Yeah.
votes in some polls, but it's crazy to think that a team like them that had garnered so much attention last year and faltered off there at the end had a totally revamped team. I believe they only had six total players on each side of the ball return
Wow.
to the team. So they basically have a brand new team, and they're doing it yet again. So hats off to John Sumrall, the coach of Tulane, for what he has built down there. But it's going to come down to this game, I think, where it'll really show the true test of them. Can they do it against a good Ole Miss team on the road? It'll be a good one to see. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think from an Ole Miss perspective that they're really looking to show out and prove that they are in a class above the rest. I personally don't have Ole Miss ranked. I do have Tulane ranked, but this is a chance for Ole Miss to prove me wrong. So far this year, teams have loved to make me eat my words, so another chance for an SEC team to do that. I do think Tulane has a really great chance here to take that lead in the Group of Five playoff race. But I looking at the players to watch here, Ole Miss quarterback Austin Simmons, he's coming back after missing last week against Arkansas. So I think that's going to be a huge boost for Ole Miss at home, that crowd roaring behind them. And then also Tulane quarterback Jake Ratzla, he is leading the team in rushing with nearly 300 yards. He's looked really great last week. It really looked like that offense was clicking behind him. And I think that if they can power with him, that they're a hard team to beat.
Yeah, and I just a quick counter your on Austin Simmons, the Ole Miss quarterback. There's been a lot of talk of, is it actually not that great that he's coming back, because their backup quarterback last week looked very good
He did. He
in that
did.
offense, and Austin Simmons, albeit has had a decent season so far, but coming off of an injury and then going against to me, a very good Tulane defense that has forced six takeaways this season. And Austin Simmons has already thrown four interceptions this season. I think it's something to watch here if he does end up playing, which I believe as of today he is touted to start. Can he handle the Tulane defense that John Sumrall can come up with? Because that defense has looked pretty good to start. I mean, I know some of their scores don't look promising, but I promise you that they're mostly garbage time sort of things. I mean, Tulane had a hefty lead against Duke and then started to fall back and play that sort of like, don't give up the big play sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really going to come down to, can they create pressure on the quarterback, cause him to go around, and I think the secondary for Tulane has to be able to play solid like they did in their first game where they
Yeah.
had four interceptions.
Yep.
We got to see that secondary again, and I think that'll give them their best chance to win that game.
Yeah, I agree. Defense is going to be key. They got six takeaways overall on the season, four of them coming in that first game, but I think they got a chance to disrupt Simmons and get after the quarterback here. I think it's safe to say you're going to go with Tulane on this one, though. Am I right?
After much thought and consideration, of course I'm going Tulane here. I got the confidence in them. They're riding high after a great win against Duke, and I think this is their chance to really. They know that this is a much bigger game, and it can bring that consistent love and energy to that team. They sold out the stadium last week for the first time in forever. And I think more people, if they can go out there and they can win this game on the road, they are going to pack Ullman every week. This is something that this team really wants, and they know that'll really help them get to where they want to be, which is the playoffs. So I'm going to go Tulane here. I do think it's going to be close. I'm going to say, I think I'm going to go with a 27-24 for Tulane.
I like it. I think you're right. This is a huge program booster potential win for Tulane. If they win this, they are going to keep climbing really high. The hater in me wants to go against you, but I'm going to ride the wave here. I'm going to ride the wave. I'm going with Tulane. I think they're going to have a second half comeback. I think Ole Miss is going to start hot, but I think Tulane's going to settle in that second half. It's going to be a nail biter. I think your score predictions really good range for how it's going to be. But yeah, I'm going to go with the wave here. I think they get the job done, and they get that huge win that sets them apart from the rest of the group of 5.
Good choice. Good choice. We would have had some words after if you did. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's going to be an absolute nail biter, and I think it's going to absolutely come down to defensive play on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, switching gears to my JMU Dukes, I think this is a game I've been looking forward to for several years now. JMU travels to Lynchburg to play Liberty at 3:30 Saturday. The newly crowned Battle of the Blue Ridge rivalry. Look out for a trophy to come soon, as well as both schools announced. But another game I'm going to be on the ground for, traveling there Saturday. Going to make a pit stop in Harrisonburg, though. Check out Billy Jack's again. Go to the bookstore before going to Lynchburg. Don't want to spend as much time as I need to in Lynchburg outside of the game. But I think this is going to shape up into an incredible rivalry game. These are two fan bases that have kind of been barking across the fence from each other for a couple of years now, ever since JMU moved back up, or not back up, but into the FBS. Liberty did so about 10 years ago. So I think it's going to be an incredible atmosphere. I'm truly expecting a nearly split crowd. I think there's going to be a lot of purple at Williams Stadium come Saturday. This is going to be Liberty's first ever sellout, so all this talk about them being the best school in Virginia, but they can't sell out their stadium. JMU's done it for 3 years in a row now. Every game. Liberty, you sell out your stadium when we come to town. I'm not surprised. This is going to be an awesome game. JMU holds the all-time record 12-6 over our little brother, but I'll give them credit. The last time these teams played was in 2014, both of them in the FCS. Liberty came to Harrisonburg and upset number 15 JMU in the first round of the FCS playoffs with a 17-play drive to take the lead in the fourth quarter. Doesn't leave a great taste in our mouth, so I really want to get out there and, get a huge win. Liberty coming off a loss to Bowling Green. They're 1-2. JMU sitting at 1-1 after that tough loss to Louisville, but had a bye week, a chance to get right. But I'm super excited to be on the ground. As excited as I was for the backyard brawl this past week, I'm even more excited to be on the ground for my alma mater and be there for a game that despite Liberty's institutional reputation, I think it's a great rivalry for the sports side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I actually love this new touted rivalry name in the Battle of the Blue Ridge. It's perfect. It rolls off the tongue. It makes sense with the mountains and everything. And I know you have been looking forward to this for forever. We have talked about it for years. Us being Virginia boys, we don't like Liberty at all. Nobody in our Dynasty Dumbies group rides with Liberty 1 second, purely because of their reputation and whatnot, but we won't get into that. Going off of a football base, Liberty has been a program that has been, in the past couple of years, they've been touted as that G5 for a little bit. They were a good program. They just couldn't get it done there at the end. But I think this game is absolutely going to set precedents for both of them for the future. Can JMU bounce back after having that gut-wrenching loss to Louisville, and then having that bye week? Can they use it to their advantage? Like I said in last week, where in the Notre Dame game, I thought it was going to hurt them. I think this is more or less going to help JMU, especially with their quarterback situation. And are they going to go to the two quarterback system again? I would hope and think that they don't. But if they do, maybe it's better worked out because they've had that bye week to really think things over.
Yeah, I mean, I pray we do not use a 50-50 split at quarterback. From what I've been listening into, what I've been reading, I don't know if it's a ploy by head coach Bob Chesney and the players, but feels like their lenience is still split the time between Alonzo Barnett III and Matt Sluka. Maybe it's a ploy. You want to keep Liberty guessing, but I think if JMU wants to win, and I don't think they're out of the college football playoff yet, even though the AAC is really strong. If they stumble and JMU can win out, really good chance for them. But they have to get that offense going, and it starts with figuring out the quarterback play because their defense, I believe, has the potential to win in the college football playoff. They're only allowing 206 yards per game. That's top 10 in the country, and I think creating big turnovers will be the deciding factor. And I also want to talk about George Pettaway, the JMU running back. He's averaging 8 yards a carry, but we're just not getting him enough touches. So I want to see him and Wayne Knight dominate the backfield touches here.
Yeah, it's, you had mentioned it in one of our previous episodes about them having a three-headed, like, horse almost at running back, and you really want to see your best players getting the ball for the most part, and I think getting that run game established is going to help them a lot, especially in the quarterback situation where, it seems like when AB3 was in, y'all were airing it out, and then if you knew
it's too predictable when you're switching quarterbacks.
Exactly,
like that.
exactly.
What's coming.
If you can get that running game established with your running backs, it could throw it off completely because you could bring in the other one and do a read option sort of thing and just do something in that sort of thing. But I think it's going to be something to keep an eye on for sure. But like you said to me, I think we all know who you're going with.
Yeah, JMU by big money, man. Big money. Think the yellow and gold streamers are going to be flying in Lynchburg come Saturday. I cannot wait for this game.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think JMU by $1 billion.
Yes, sir.
It's not going to be close. I think it could maybe start close, but I think JMU runs away with it and just really shows who's king here in Virginia.
Yeah, I do think that this could be a battle. Virginia Tech, UVA, not great right now. I think JMU has a chance to establish itself as the premier team in the state. So I'm looking forward to it. Definitely check out our recap episode coming next week because I'll be talking all about the on-the-ground experience, what it was like there. So really looking forward to this one, and roll Dukes, baby.
Yeah.
And then looking at our next game after this emotional high of our teams, looking at Texas Tech traveling to Utah, Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is a 10 a.m. local kickoff time, which is just crazy to be that early.
That is absolutely absurd in any sort of standard. I don't know who approved that. How can you have a team like Texas Tech traveling to Utah and have the game kick off at 10 in the morning? That's absurd. Yeah. Like, I don't know if it was to deal with, TV rights sort of thing where they had the slot at that time, but I don't know who would put that slot there. It should have definitely been a 3:00 game or something later at least, and especially being two ranked teams according to the AP. So you'd think it would have gotten something better, but another one of those games of should College Game Day have gone here? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I was muted. I think this could have been a College Game Day one here. at 10 a.m. local kickoff may have scared them away, but I think this is going to be an incredible game. Texas Tech leads the nation in scoring with 66 points per game. So I think this one might turn into a classic early 2010s Big 12 shootout. But for Utah, on their side of things, they have been playing very clean football with limiting the turnovers, and that's going to be the key to beating the Red Raiders. They have to limit the Texas opportunities on offense.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Texas Tech has just blown up this season scoring wise, and they've really solidified themselves as one of the top offenses. And they were really, people were really getting a little antsy about them because of how much money they had spent, come these NIL deals and whatnot. But they're really showing out this year, and that it's, the money's well spent so far. But this will be a true test for them. I think a player to watch for here is Utah quarterback Dampier. He has been touted as a possible Heisman Award winner here. He has played, I think, phenomenal in the first parts of this season and is someone to definitely keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I think he's looked great, but I do think the key for them in this game is their running back duo of Wayshawn Parker and Aquari Rogers. They've been really great this year. Rogers has 152 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging just above 4 yards per carry, while Parker just under 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 yards per carry, and a receiving touchdown. They have to, like I said earlier, limit Texas Tech's opportunities on offense, and that means running the ball, draining the clock. And from a Texas Tech perspective, their quarterback, Baron Morton, he's going to be their key to victory. 70% completion percentage throughout the season so far, 923 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 1 INT. They have to get that offense going and get it going quickly. And if they can, it can turn into a shootout, which I think it favors them.
Yeah, if it gets out of hand quickly and turns into one of those quick pace games where it's a shootout, I think it heavily favors Texas Tech. They're just too quick of a team right now. But another thing to take note of is, like I said earlier with Dampier, is he's leading the team in rushing yards as well. So we'll have to see if Texas Tech can contain him not only through the air but on the ground. If they can get that, if they can do that, I think they'll get the job done with their super high-powered offense right now. So who do you got in this one?
Going with the Red Raiders, I think their offense is just going to be a little bit too much for the Utes to handle. I think it'll be a close one. I think it's going to turn into a high-scoring affair, so I'm going to roll with Tech on this one.
I think I'm going to have to agree with you here. I think it turns into that quick strike game, and I think that just favors Texas Tech too much, and they just kind of – I think it stays close, and then maybe towards the end of the game they sort of put it to bed.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I think they're going to pull away come end of third, beginning of fourth quarter. But another game that we're asking, should College Game Day be here? Illinois travels to Indiana Saturday night, 7:30. This is going to be an incredible Big Ten matchup. I think this is where College Game Day should have been this week. It's going to be battling for the top position in the Big Ten, and I think the home field advantage really favors Indiana in this one.
Yeah. This should have when I heard that game day was going or saw that game day was going to Miami, I was shocked and confused. I thought that this would have been the first choice, honestly, being as their how they're ranked right now. It kind of blew my mind a little, but nonetheless, it is what it is. But this is a very big game, very early in the season, I think, and it could really show how these teams are in a game where Illinois might be higher ranked, but Indiana is the favorite right now. So I think that goes to show a lot about this Indiana team. And I know you're probably fond of the Indiana coach, seeing as how he is a former Duke. And
a lot of former Dukes still on that roster too.
Yeah, so I mean, it just goes to show that, that they can transition well and that they can play well, and they're really showing it out right now. I did see a video on the Indiana athletic director talking about his first phone call with Signetti and how he was like, he said, "Can you win here?" Or what? How do you think you'll do? And he said, "I can win. He said, I could win with just average resources. Don't worry, I'll be fine. And
Yeah.
just really showing his confidence in himself, and then now with his team. This has massive implications on my end, and I'm sure on your end, and hopefully the dummies end, and possibly the AP as well, depending on their
Yeah.
voters, on where teams will land. With Illinois right now being number 9 in the AP and Indiana being number 19, I think this could cause a big flip in things. Seeing a top 10 team go down this early to a conference opponent. So we'll
Yeah.
have to see how this turns out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think you hit the nail on the head there with Signetti. I think he's a winner. He's won everywhere he's gone. I really wish that he could have stayed at JMU, but Indiana offered him the Godfather offer, an offer he could not refuse. And
Yeah.
it's hard to pass that up. And I think Indiana is a sleeping giant. They have all the basketball resources in the world, and now they're diverting some to football to a team that just went to the college football playoff in Signetti's first year. I think Indiana is a team to be reckoned with. I personally have them ranked higher in the dummies ranking. They're ranked 13th, not all the way down like the AP poll. Think this is going to be a great quarterback battle between Altmaier for Illinois and Mendoza for IU. They have damn near identical stats. 709 yards and 8 TDs for Altmaier, while Mendoza has 708 and 9 touchdowns. I think this is going to be a great game, though. But, Tony, who do you got?
It's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be closer than people think. But I think I'm going to have to go Indiana here. It just seems like they're riding high. I think Signetti is going to get them right, and they're going to win a close one here. Albeit, I think Illinois is going to give them a run, but I think Indiana has it in them to do it. And like you said, the home field advantage, I think, is going to play a big factor in this. So I'll go Indiana and a nail biter.
Yeah, I am going to have to agree with you. I think Indiana gets the job done. I think having the home field advantage suits them. I think that stadium is going to be packed. Signetti's figured out how to get fans into the stadium, and that's just by winning every freaking thing he can.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the difference maker. I don't think it's going to be as close as a nail biter, but I think the Indiana gets it done by at least a touchdown in this one.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. I would say around that same sort of thing. I would think it's going to be one possession, maybe two if they're lucky. But like you said, Signetti has really turned this program around and made them a legit contender. But yeah, that's gonna do it for these must-watch games of the week. So let us know what you guys are looking forward to this week in this massive slate of games. What upsets you think are going to happen? What games we should be watching for? Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Dynasty Dummies. In case you don't know, it's Dumbies. It is spelled wrong on purpose. It is spelled wrong on purpose. We know that. And then if you want, go ahead and follow our personal Twitter accounts at Hunter_Shaw5 and then at CronyTony20. Yeah, we will see you guys after the weekend for our recap show.
See you guys. Have a great one.